Hello class, this is Shalay Washington, and this week's video discussion, we had to choose another denomination that we were not quite familiar with. So I decided to choose the Kojic Church, which is the Church of God in Christ. This particular denomination has interested me over the past few years throughout my research, being because of the type of people that I've been researching. Of course, one's religion plays a background, and their background has been Pentecostal. The Kojic Church is the largest African American Pentecostal denomination in the United States with over 5 million members. The articles that I chose to take a look at for this week's discussion, two of them are book reviews that kind of give a synopsis on the overall book. So Calvin White's book, it shows why the Kojic Church is an important contribution to the social history of African Americans and Christianity, while also providing a history on the church and its founder, Charles Harrison Mason. In Thea Butler's book, it provides roles and perspectives of Kojic women and their influences and influenced. Jonathan Chisholm's article, it dives into a deeper topic because it dives into 4 influential leaders or members of the Kojic and their involvement in the civil rights movement. So those 4 figures that he covers are Charles Harrison Mason, who is the founder of the Kojic and the most influential leader of the denomination from 1906 to 1961. Next is Arnia C. Mallory, who was the president of the Saints Industrial and Technical College. Third is Mamie Till Mobley, who is Emmett Till's mother. And lastly is James Oglethorpe Patterson Sr., who is the first presiding bishop of Kojic. Mason's biblical and spiritual focus, it kept him from sanctioning political protests, but his spiritual beliefs, it did inspire him to advance interracial worship during the Jim Crow era. Mason was a grassroots revivalist, and he negotiated many deals with political leaders in Memphis on behalf of Kojic. Him and other members, they refused to enlist in World War I because they believed that the Bible prohibited combat warfare. And of course, we know that the Constitution, it does provide that for religion. Also, him and others, they were also investigated and accused of conspiring to commit crimes against the United States. And even though he advanced interracial worship during the Jim Crow era, many black and white Pentecostals, they already worshiped and prayed together and viewed each other as family. By Mason advancing interracial fellowship, this was black and whites closely affiliating with one another, dining with one another, and sharing lodging with one another when they were on their religious travels. Even though racism still continued among some of the Pentecostals, and this is what caused the white Pentecostal leaders to separate from the Mason and the Kojic in 1913 and form the white Pentecostal denomination, the Assemblies of God, in 1914. The next figure is Arnia C. Mallory, and she was responsible for shifting many Kojic members' attitude towards non-biblical education. She also had a strong relationship with Mary McLeod Bethune, and she was also involved in the National Council of Negro Women. Mallory met Mason when she was only 22 years old at a Kojic meeting in St. Louis, Missouri. He noticed her leadership ability and he asked her to serve as president for the Saints Industrial School. Her understanding of American democracy and politics came from her relationship with Mary McLeod Bethune and the National Council on Negro Women. The National Council of Negro Women, at its peak, it had 900,000 members, members of Black women who advocated civil rights issues, equal educational opportunities, full rights, and federal action to abolish lynching. Through her diverse leadership roles in the NCNW, she played an influential role in the early civil rights struggle, and many of her students became active members in the civil rights movement. The next figure that we'll get into is Mamie Till Mobley. Mamie Till Mobley, she was Emmett Till's mother, and she was a Codgic woman, a regular member, but she was important to the civil rights movement because her testimony of her son's unjust murder, it stirred many Black Christians, including many Black Pentecostals. Mobley decided to have an open casket funeral, and this really sparked the civil rights movement. She had admitted to being guilty, like many Americans, of turning her eyes away from the ugly reality of racial hatred. But of course, once it came to her doorstep, she had to speak up. This figure is Patterson, James Oglethorpe Patterson Sr. He actually became Mason's son-in-law and son in the gospel. He married Deborah Mason, Charles Mason's fifth daughter, in 1934, and Mason ordained him as a minister in 1936 and later as a bishop in 1952. One thing about Patterson was that he viewed himself as an intermediary in between the younger and the older Codgic members, and he also revised the official Codgic manual that was originally written by Charles Mason. His son, James Oglethorpe Patterson Jr., he attained a JD degree, served as a state representative for Tennessee, and later became the first Black mayor of Memphis. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Sorry it's so long.